Hello, folks. It's George Leoniak, and welcome to New Geometry. I'm excited to be sharing this video today with some new golden discoveries. Today, I'm going to combine the flower of life with the seed of life for some unexpected magical discoveries that are going to come out of the combination of the two. So, as usual, I have a presentation set up, so I'm just going to hop into sharing the screen to have some visuals to aid within this uh, discussion. So here is the flower of life here in the upper left corner here, and the seed of life. And when we add these two together, we get this flower seed of life, right? So the flower and the seed are together. And this is a drawing that I have seen done before, and we can continue to create the seed of life in each of these large circles of the seed of life, and the pattern will go on and on. Yet there is probably a little known discovery that just happened to pop up. I've never seen it anywhere else, but something magical happens in the interaction between these two circles, the red and the blue circles of the seed and the flower of life, is that actually there's a golden circle surprise that's hidden in plain sight within the interaction of the two the smaller circle and the larger circle. We're getting three levels of golden ratio circles. Now, of course, in many of my videos, I discuss the golden circles, have a whole golden seed of life pattern, which of course draws all the Platonic solids and many, many other forms. But this was a unique discovery in terms of how, without using a technique to get the golden ratio circles, the actual interaction between the seed of life and flower of life hit at these nodal points, which I've outlined and dotted in black here. They hit these locations where the two circles overlap. We'll make a circle there. And then right here on this inner hexagon of the 6 points, we have another circle, and that's in golden proportion. And the last circle is on the inner circle of that same circle, circling around here, interacting with this other seed of life circle. And that gives us a circle that's a little bit larger than the diameter of the inner circle of the seed of the flower of life, but all three of those circles are in golden proportion. So, of course, I wanted to double check that to make sure in the GeoGebra program. And these golden ratio values are based on the square root of 3. If I start with a 1-inch seed of life petal, or 1-inch radius, basically on the small circles, we'll be getting the vesicas, which will be the, let's see, is that the 1-inch? Yes, 1-inch. We'll be getting the vesicas, which will have a B to Z measurement of the square root of 3, 1.732. A1 to Z here will be the golden ratio, the whole of this whole length. And then this would be a kind of equivalent to 1.070 would be the 0.618. So basically, the square root of 3 is acting as 1. This would be 1.618 to 2.80. And the lower number here would be 0.618. And that would be, if you do the math and calculate these, you'll see that it adds up to the golden ratio divisions here rather than using 1. So that was neat. Of course, the cool thing about this is that we can draw this pattern without ever having to draw any lines at all to get these golden ratio circles. So you could start with any size circle, just pop it down in the middle of your pad and start making your, decent size, not too big of a circle. Make a flower of life, do the 19 circles first, and then you'll be able to pop out to the edge here to get the correct diameter or the correct radius to set your compass to do the seed of life around that. And then you're just looking for those key nodal points to draw the 3 other circles, the blue, red, and the black circle here. And then that gives you your 3 divisions of the golden ratio. Here's my phi calipers checking that out. And I could shorten them up to get the other golden ratio segment here too. So I thought that was just awesome because I always like to look for interesting ways to get the golden circles. And I tried to do it without getting lines. And I have an end of the line video, which is a very cool way to do it. This is probably even a simpler way because it also produces the Platonic solids, at least the icosahedron and dodecahedron here that I've shown. And for this, you will have to draw in the other lines, to get the locations where you're going to be able to, make this blue hexagon. So you have to draw in the 6 directions here on 3 lines of symmetry and figure out where the other lines of this other hexagon to draw the dodecahedron. But for the most part, just a little bit of line setup, but the circle pattern gives you the 3 golden ratio circles, and that's really all you need to draw the icosahedron with the dodecahedron that would be nesting with inside it. If we did the cross stars in the middle inside the icosa, would create the pentagon faces of the dodeca. And then, of course, in the dodecahedron, we have the cube and the tetrahedron, which I didn't draw in here, but pretty much in this simple design, which is just in the basic circles, no golden ratio division, no golden cut, none of that stuff that you have to do for this setup. Just drawing this flower of life, draw the seed of life, and pick out those 3 circles, and you're good to go. Now, I started having a little bit of fun with this one and seeing what other lines could come up in the pattern. And within it, I discovered by just connecting the lines within the flower seed pattern and then connecting this other smaller set of lines inside, which are coming off of these circles here, connecting over to there, we come up with a golden hexagon kind of lattice or grid work. And these are the golden hexagons. And it was about over 2 years ago now that I did my first video on the golden hexagon because there's really nothing on the golden hexagon that's written out there. And I've seen other forms that are made with the golden hexagon, but they call it an irregular truncated icosahedron or something like that. But this golden hexagon is really key, at least in the drawing of sacred geometry. And it's in the forms. It's actually in the dodecahedron. I have a video about the dodecahedron and the golden hexagon because it's in it, in a cross section of it. So, I had fun with this golden hexagon lattice, and I came up with the cool Star of David design here of the 2 interlocking triangles, the red and the blue kind of woven together. And I think that's a nifty way to do it. I'm inspired to go back and look at some of the either drawings or carvings of this, because the golden hexagon you can see is outlined here in that little triangle. Well, this little segment right here in blue to the continuation of that blue segment, right where the red is meeting, well, that would be the golden mean, because here's the golden hexagon that I've kind of invisibly encoded within to this, sacred symbol here, which is very neat to encode the golden ratio within it. But this also leads to a cool setup that you can continue to, without drawing any extra circles, all the lines are going to be provided at those intersections, a way to create an infinitely nesting implosion a la Dan Winter, language of the implosion here, of continually going golden ratio, infinite compression into the center, on and on and on infinitely with no end in sight, just smaller and smaller golden hexagons. As you can see, here is one golden hexagon, and then here's the next golden hexagon, the next, the next, the next. Can keep going on infinitely down into the center. And that was really cool to see that still no additional circles other than this flower seed pattern that I've done, that are creating all the lines to do this. So it's that was kind of mind-blowing to me, because I have produced this early on. This was a drawing that came out early in the golden circles design, which instead of using the half radius circles, these become golden proportion circles, and this pattern will emerge. But it was neat to discover that it can be produced within just these flower seed pattern. And we can also expand it out the other way and continue the lines all the way through. And this is more of an infinite explosion. And we can continue to go on and on and on. And this is more of a full pattern. And you can see this now will not have the triangle tip, which does want to complete out here, but it would be outside of the circle pattern. So I just ended it at the seed of life circle. And there you could see the nice big golden hexagons all the way around and pick them out as they get smaller into the center. Now, I became curious about this because I was really wanting to learn more about what's going on with just one of these equilateral triangle wedges, right? So I pretty much pulled out one equilateral triangle or two equilateral triangles that fit right over top of that central wedge there that you see. And I was curious about the actual circle pattern that would be used to create that, because this circle pattern, the large one of the seed of life, the flower seed pattern, gives you all the places to keep building the lines in further, and then the lines just work off of each other. No additional circles are needed to keep doing this drawing that I'm showing. But if I wanted to just draw this on its own, just the two equilateral triangles, well, what happened was, this is one of another early video of mine, which is about drawing the double as above, so below video of the double pentagon. So actually there's pentagons in this, which I didn't highlight in here, but there's an upward pointing and a downward pointing pentagon that are off of this line right here. But what I decided to do here was just really highlight the hexagon implosion down towards the tip here. And at each successive level, we do that as above, so below pentagon pattern, because it's a double vesica. So we have the regular vesica Pisces in the middle, and then we have a golden ratio circle, that two more circles around that vesica. And those are going to give you all the points you need to build the next segment of that golden hexagon, and you keep doing those two pattern, the four circles at each of these lines again and again and again and again, and that will take you down that rabbit hole of the equilateral triangle there. Now, this is really got me thinking about the lute of Pythagoras, which is this pattern right over here, this pentagon. Well, it's a pentagon and pentagon and pentagon and pentagon, and it's based on a golden triangle. This one here is based on the equilateral triangle, but the golden triangle will have the pentagons that continue on further and further and further. And it was neat to see that this really only requires one circle in the pentagon pattern, because it's all about phi, right? It's all about the golden proportion is easily in that. Now, the hexagon, that is not true. The hexagon, as I'll show in the next slide, is a very stable pattern. But when we develop this little triangle in the middle of it and create all sorts of golden ratio edge lengths, well, then we get this pattern, and it uses the vesica Pisces to, and the golden ratio circles around it to continue on. So I had a little fun with this one, everyone. And I called this one the lute of Leoniac. Because this is a totally viable pattern that is operating with the same similarities to the pentagon pattern here, this infinite fractality of the pentagons. And this pattern here is also creating the same division along here. Remember, this would be 1.6181. Well, in the golden hexagon, this would be 1.6181. And this would be 1.6181, 1.6181. So that little gap of that triangle in the middle is actually very much acting like the five-sided pentagon that's created over those phi proportioned star, where this is this phi proportion within the hexagon, creating that small equilateral triangle in the middle. So there's the lute of Pythagoras and the lute of Leoniac, said with a smile. So we're going to be jamming out with a little bit more music here. And I wanted to take a look at this golden hexagon fractal implosion model to the left, just in comparison to the regular hexagon, because The regular hexagon is a very stable pattern, which is easily created in the seed of life, right? Seed of life, two of them together here overlapping. And that pattern can go on and on and on. You never change the radius of the circle. There's no little triangle in the middle being created. It all meets at this point. So you have these equilibrium stasis, a kind of equilibrium state, where between each of the points is the same distance. So we will get an unbroken pattern of this hexagon tiling with equilateral triangles forever in one plane. It's not really fractal. It's not really moving in any direction, although many people like to consider this as being like a fractal type of pattern. But phi and golden ratio is really creating this, in this golden hexagon version, the fractal pattern that continues to show how the larger gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the circle patterns continuing on down towards an infinite point towards the tip of this here. So a very different way in the same size to same two equilateral triangles of the same size, how we have this huge difference in the implosive capacity, at least in the drawing here, of the equilateral triangles, showing how it continues to infinitely implode like this, where this will just stay stable. This one here is showing that really I was showing for the previous ones that it was just going in one direction, but we could turn that same pattern around with the golden hexagons and send it up the equilateral triangle the other way as well. And then we get some, a lot of golden hexagons here crisscrossing in the middle. It's a little tricky to pick out where those golden hexagons are, but it's all overlapping. And remember, this is just one portion of this whole pattern, which you can do the equilateral triangles, or actually this one, you could do that infinite implosion pattern going in this direction as well towards that point too. So this would be a pattern that has implosion kind of at each location where the two equilateral triangles are abutting each other like this. So there could be one here, there could be one here, and there you go. You see there's a lot of implosion happening in all points in space, where this is more, I guess, like the static, steady background, very stable, no movement within this type of pattern. At least it appears to be, at least in the drawing. So here is that implosion pattern that is that golden hexagon, and underneath this I have a drawing that I did. What could be hidden in these lines? Well, this was a very cool discovery without any additional circles other than the flower seed. Let me move that out of the way. Was this amazing drawing was the dodecahedron, and three of them, for instance, were in here, and that is the same pattern. I won't drag it back, but this is right here within this, these little bars that you see going across here, and they could keep going. I only did three of them because it'd probably get a little more tricky to get the other ones further down in here, but we have three dodecahedron in the flower seed pattern that are relating to these golden circle locations that I've described, interacting with those lines of that pattern with the drawing to draw them. And that was very cool to me because I've drawn this before with golden circles, but just to see that it's in the most basic pattern of the flower seed pattern was really exciting to me. And this fractal implosion that we're talking about is very much has a large amount to do with the golden ratio, as Dan Winter discusses, and a lot to do with the icosahedron and definitely the dodecahedron as well. So we have a little comparison coming up right now because I will need to discuss a bit about Metatron's cube dodecahedron in this video because you know, we're going to look at this golden dodecahedron out here, and these two circle patterns just take 7 seed of life circles. That's all that's going to be in the construction of this. So I discovered another way to draw Metatron's cube, this dodecahedron, not Metatron's cube, but the dodecahedron drawn in Metatron's cube that's in the seed of life with this line set up. So you don't really need to draw all the 13 circles of the fruit of life and then draw that if you prefer to draw this version of the quote unquote dodecahedron. Um, but it's definitely not a dodecahedron that is going to lead towards any type of implosion or explosion type of patterns. It's not going to be able to stellate properly. It's a depiction of something that is showing 6 faces, and you're assuming there's another 6 on the backside of that, giving you 12 pentagon faces. But the pentagon faces are totally irregular, and I have so many videos saying how it's not a perspective drawing and all those other things. Check out that one. The Metatron's inaccuracies in Metatron's cube are so easy to see. You can't unsee them. That's a video on my channel. Check that one out. It's going to describe all the reasons why this dodecahedron is a geometric dead end, really. And the one over here with the golden proportion, and what I mean by that is that if this back edge of this is 1, then this length, which would be the length of the star, right? If you drew a pentagon star in there, that would be 1.618. And that, of course, is the proportions that this one holds. And this one here basically gives you a 1 inch, let's say it's 1 in the back, to 2. So this would be 1, and that star length, the arm of the star going across a pentagram star with the pentagon base would be 1, pentagram star edge length would be 2, 1 to 2, okay? So that's pretty even division of 1-2 ratio, where 1.618 is what we're looking for. So really, as I think about this more and more and work with the geometry, if we continue to promote this version, it's going to keep, geometry very much more stuck in terms of what I've been sharing on this channel. And it really then becomes, it's based on a belief of what sacred is. And sacred doesn't just mean that people did it before you that way either. It doesn't mean sacred is just old and archaic. This would be based on belief that this is a true dodecahedron. It's just an inaccurate drawing of one, really. Now, this one is more accurate drawing. It's really based on an eternal sacred geometry of the golden proportion, right? So there's truth within this that can be verified in many different ways, which I'll show you in just a moment by what I mean by that. So this is really based on eternal principles of sacred geometry and eternal principles that are true. Now, this one here is a new construction I've never shown, although I've drawn it with a few people now. It is same 7 circles of the seed of life, and those lines are all you need to do to draw this without adding any additional circles. So it's right there in the basic seed of life pattern, which is just amazing to me, that it's hit right there with no additional lines or anything like that. No additional circles to the pattern, no reason to make a golden division, proportion, a divine cut. It's magically going to happen in these lengths here are already divided into the golden proportion and the divine cut all on its own. You wouldn't even know you're doing it probably unless you measured it with phi calipers, but you are going to draw a dodecahedron based on eternal sacred truth. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there's many paths to that golden truth of that dodecahedron. Here are just 12 examples of the same dodecahedron, right, drawn with 12 different circle patterns to get the same golden dodecahedron. There's not any more, you're always going to come up with the same dodecahedron, regardless of these circle patterns. And that is something that is really magical to me, because somewhere on your blank page exists, when you're drawing this, a dodecahedron that is in golden proportion. And you have many ways to bring that dodecahedron to the surface of your page with a variety of different circle techniques that are going to guide the lines. Some of these circle techniques require golden ratio circles, some do not. Some are going to tilt the dodecahedron, some are going to be based on the classic seed of life, some are not going to be based on that. Some are going to have different size circles, some are going to be based on root 2 circles. Some are going to only be able to be made of this cluster of 20 dodecahedron if you can draw one dodecahedron accurate. So many videos that I show the expansive possibilities that are possible when we are working with this dodecahedron, and I haven't even shown you the stellations of the dodecahedron in this video, but check out the other videos that will show why the importance of a dodecahedron based on any of these techniques is going to point you into a direction that has not been accessible with working with this Metatron's cube dodecahedron. But I did discover one other way to draw Metatron's cube dodecahedron without the 13 circles, but it's really based on a division of this back line at a 1 to 5. So this edge of this triangle would be 5 units. This one segment here would be 5 of those. One of the 5 of those segments. So it's really based on the kind of whole numbers to create that dodecahedron. But as we know, the dodecahedron has very specific requirements related to the golden ratio. Let's do this slide next, because this is one way to show that in all those previous dodecahedron that I was just showing, all these, well, regardless of how the scale is on them, there is something that we could look for that will tell us whether we've come across that. Now, of course, in hand-drawn, don't worry about being able to measure all these accurately. This is only to be able to test out on the computer. But if you're following some sort of golden ratio technique or one of these that I'm showing, you'll end up at a dodecahedron that's pretty close to these probably angle measurements. But hand-drawn, of course, is always, has some variability, but it really becomes not about the edge lengths, whatever size it is, are going to be in golden proportion, the back edge to the star arm that I was calling it. But the angles are going to be the important thing that are going to always be consistent on all of these computer-generated dodecahedron. Hand-drawn, some variability, but you're working with techniques that can produce it. So those are the measurements that those are the angles that will be present over and over again in all those 12 examples. So the angles or angels tell the story. So this one slide is just also showing that within that same dodecahedron outline that I showed, you can see where the outline of the dodecahedron will be. Well, once again, without producing any golden ratio circles, just by doing that golden hexagon grid pattern, well, this now gives us the outline of the rhombic triacontahedron, which is this form right here. And this is a rhombic, a diamond-sided face. It's actually the compound of the icosahedron and the dodecahedron. Another model with the lines on it. So each of those lines that are crisscrossing on this are the icosahedron, the long ones. The short one of that pentagon face there is the dodecahedron. So it's the compound of both of those, relates to the Earth grid, and this is just one view of it in the hexagon view, looking at it like that. So that nicely shows up, and once again, just in 7 circles, it makes its appearance. And one other thing I just should mention about this previous slide, that these are 12 version, 12 different ways to draw this, but this is still only from the hexagon perspective, right? So, the golden ratio circles will also draw it in an edge view. They'll draw it in the pentagon view that I call it, and you'll also get, views where it's sitting on its face. You'll get views where it's standing upright, it's on its vertice like this. So a lot of other views become accessible. So I'm really only showing just a small sampling of the dodecahedron from these other views, which were also very inaccessible through just working with this pattern that excludes the golden ratio. Now, if you're a geometer who is just getting started in this, or if you're teaching this geometry and you're sharing and excluding the golden ratio circles from this and sharing that to a broad, wide audience, that's very suspect, in my opinion, of why to hold on so tightly to a non-golden ratio version and continue to promote that when we know that this formula here, working with the golden ratio, is really going to lead to an expansion in consciousness through the route of sacred geometry. All right, so, and this form here, this rhombic triacontahedron, is a very big part of that. So just a few more things here. This some new discoveries of the golden circles that have been hidden in plain sight that have brought the light on this YouTube channel are this one here, the golden flower seed of life pattern. And maybe there's probably a better name of that for that, but I do like the flower seed pattern because I do think that flowers produce many beautiful seeds too. So I like the combination of both here. But as I showed earlier in the video, we have 3 concentric circles here of these golden ratio circles showing up. And the other one that I looked at here, which is called a Rayush God seed, which is part of chelantic science or Krithara grid or crystal spiral, if any of those are familiar to you. Early in the fall last year, I did quite a few videos looking at this pattern and the golden ratio divisions that were also hidden in this one within the circle pattern. And that also seemed to be not readily in the public or many people aware of it, if any at all. So these are 2 neat patterns that are based on the square view and the hexagon view that just from drawing the circles are automatically producing golden ratio within them. You just have to look outside of the major nodal points to find the connection points. So you have to have a little bit of X-ray vision to think outside of where lines cross or circles cross to some of the more hidden areas within the diagram. And that's where some of the discoveries are made. So one last slide here, and this is where I'll probably go next. In fact, I thought this video was going to be all about this, but then all these other slides emerge. But I want to get back to Coxeter's nonagon star, because honestly, it's what led to all the discoveries that you just saw on this flower seed pattern of life. And you could see here that Coxeter's star, the star and the nonagon that I've build with and build and construct this form out of, as well as learn to draw it, is also within this same pattern of the flower seed with those golden ratio circles. And as you follow those golden ratio circles in, they're going to give you the cross sections to produce all 5 Platonic solids in this amazing star of the stellation pattern. So I'm going to revisit that next time. Okay, so that is that's what I want to share for this video. It was been quite a journey to work with that flower seed pattern and discover something that was hidden there. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's a discovery that's out there, but I have seen that drawing before, definitely. But the discovery of those golden circles with all my other relationship with those circle pattern helped really fuse it together and see the potential of that pattern with working with the golden circles like I do in many other videos. So I really appreciate you watching the video. Please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to learn more about Coxeter's star in the next video or any of the other great content that will be produced here. Also, check out new geometry courses if you're interested in learning to draw some sacred geometry. I have an apprenticeship coming up here in May 1st. I also take on one-on-one mentees. I've got a complete year of new geometry apprenticeships, 45 videos, which is just a fantastic offering. And many other little classes and courses, drawing the Platonic solids there, and also this free drawing the Sri Yantra video there. So lots of opportunities there. Check out the New Geometers Facebook group, almost 3,000 members in there, great community producing fantastic discoveries of their own. I really appreciate everybody who chimes in that forum. So thanks again. Thanks for watching. Much love to you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.